no government in Somalia. Law and order have broken down. Anarchy prevails. This is serious business.
You're not going to make it that Americans isn't their law.
On October 3rd and 4th, 1993, the city of Mogadishu was the site of a violent conflict between US Marines and Somali fighters. This event was later dramatized in the success movie Black Hawk Down, which featured Josh Hartnett and made close to $200 million at the box office. The film portrays the Marines as heroic figures who, against overwhelming odds, defended themselves from relentless attacks by hundreds of Somali fighters, losing 18 of their own.
A mission of mercy has become an arena of death for Americans in Somalia.
A shocked America, outraged that the operation, codenamed Operation Restore Hope, launched to save the Somali people from starvation, had been attacked by the very people it was supposed to save, then withdrew from Somalia. However, the true story of what happened in Mogadishu has never been fully told, and it is far more shocking and complex than how the Americans have portrayed it. We will explain how an American slaughter of clan leaders who were meeting to broker peace with the US triggered the revenge attack, and how despite the death toll, the Battle of Mogadishu is still seen a historic victory for Somalis and celebrated in Somali poetry, music, and history books.
I have given the order to move a substantial American force into Somalia.
American troops hoping to safeguard the delivery of food and medicine to help turn this crisis around. Operation Restore Hope, now underway.
Operation Restore Hope was a military operation led by the United States in Somalia that aimed to provide humanitarian aid and establish a stable government in the war-torn country of Somalia. The Somalis, however, call it the Battle of Mogadishu. For them, it was a defining event in which they forced a humiliated superpower, defeated, and ultimately to withdraw. However, it was a victory with a high price for the Somalis. It is estimated that at least 1,000 people, but possibly as many as 3,000, died when the Americans used helicopter gunship and high-caliber weapons in a heavily populated area near the largest market in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. To understand the events that happened on the 3rd and 4th of October, we have to go back a few years. At independence in 1960, Somalia was a jewel of Africa, democratic, liberal, and the seemingly successful conjoining of different entities freed from Italian and British colonial rule. Mogadishu was known as one of the most beautiful cities in Africa. In 1991, Siad Barre, the Somali dictator who had been in power for 21 years, was overthrown by clan militias who were sick of his rule. But then the clans turned on each other, resulting in a terrible civil war that had been brewing under Barre's reign. Within a year, hunger and starvation gripped Somalia, and by 1992, the US decided to send in troops to Somalia to support the UN tackle widespread starvation in the country. The mission was classed as peacekeeping by the Americans.
Doing God's work, we will not fail. Thank you, and may God bless the United States of America.
President Bush orders 28,000 US troops on a mission he described as God's work to save more than 1 million lives. You see, having defeated the Iraqi army in the Gulf War and winning the Cold War, the US military at the time believed it was unstoppable. As far as they were concerned, they were the world's policemen. The mission, however, was not well planned and coordinated. The Americans seemed to be not well prepared and knowledgeable of the clan structure in Mogadishu. To be specific, the Americans had no understanding of who controlled which part of the city. Somalia was in a state of total chaos after Siad Barre's fall. In Mogadishu, 2 Hawiye subclans were controlling the city. General Aidid from the Habagadir clan, controlling most of Mogadishu, as well as central and south Somalia, and Ali Mahdi from the Abgal clan, controlling parts of Mogadishu and some towns nearby. The Americans were dealing directly with Ali Mahdi, who was trying to use them to defeat his enemy Aidid. What the Americans failed to understand was that General Aidid dominated the city and had the overwhelming support of the population. The US established their first base at Mogadishu port, but as their numbers grew, they started moving around the city. There were checkpoints manned by Aidid's men, but the Americans felt they could come and go as they pleased. Hostility grew with incidents in which Somalis were being killed. In response, a meeting of clan leaders was called to find a negotiated settlement with the Americans and UNISOM. On July 12, the meeting was taking place in IDID's interior minister's residence. Using up to 10 helicopter gunships, the US soldiers carried out a brutal 17-minute attack on the mansion, murdering nearly everyone present, including religious leaders, clan elders, intellectuals, and civil servants. Somalia on that day lost the majority of their intellectuals and leaders. On October 3rd, 1993, US forces planned to arrest 2 of IDID's senior lieutenants during a meeting in the IDID-controlled section of Mogadishu. The raid, originally scheduled to last 1 hour, turned into an all-night standoff and rescue operation that dragged on into the daytime hours of the next day. During the operation, Somali forces armed with RPGs shot down 3 American Black Hawk helicopters. The operation, codenamed Task Force Ranger, was ill-prepared to cope with the type of urban guerrilla warfare common in Mogadishu and ultimately led to mission failure. After the battle, dead American soldiers were dragged through the streets of Mogadishu by Somalis in scenes shown on international television, humiliating the only superpower, America.
These tragic events raise hard questions about our effort in Somalia. Why are we still there?
No battle since the Vietnam War had resulted in such heavy US casualties at the time, making the incident even more shocking. The Battle of Mogadishu shocked the American military, the American public, and the American political establishment. Almost immediately, there were calls for America to withdraw from Somalia. Despite the American withdrawal, the situation in Somalia did not improve. The civil war that had started with Barre's fall worsened. In 1996, General Aidid, a hero across Africa for seemingly defeating a superpower, died of a heart attack after having been shot in a clash with former allies. Somalis suspected the hand of America in his death.